breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Hey, warmer for the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Ben Wilson. He does such an amazing job here at the network. He does a great job with all of his play-by-play work, whether that be tennis, college baseball, college basketball, you name it, he does it. He's a man like myself from the great state of Wisconsin, so we're going to chat with him about what we've all been seeing here in the NL Central thus far. We'll take a look forward to the Cardinals versus Brewers game that we've got on Tuesday and the Brewers, and how getting back Andrew Vaughn and Rio, that should be some positivity for them. Additionally, we're going to be taking a look at the landscape of baseball and some of the teams and some of the players that he's feeling a little bit bullish/bearish on in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. Well, I did not get in any Twitter/X questions. We did have ourselves a fun day of baseball on Tuesday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Mets did it. They have back-to-back wins on their ledger. 4-2, they take down the Colorado Rockies. It was a relatively good pitching performance here. The conditions weren't necessarily the best out there in Coors, so the pitchers benefited from that. Oscar Brisbane as the opener, a scoreless setting, and then Austin Warren, 2 scoreless settings. David Peterson is more of the bulk guy. Great name. Not an amazing performance, but not a bad one. 2 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Craig Kimbrell, Devin Williams, scoreless 8th and 9th innings, and for Tomoyuki Sugano, gives up 4 runs in 5 1/3 innings, was taken deep by Carson Benjai, his 3rd home run of the campaign. From there, Jaden Hill, pair of outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Juan Mejia, 2 scoreless settings, and then Brandon Bernardino, a scoreless setting, but by then, the damage had been done. No damage done by the Miami Marlins. 1-0, the Philadelphia Phillies get the job done here. Aaron Nola, 6 scoreless settings, probably his best start in quite some time. Tanner Banks, Jose Alvarado, Brad Keller from there, all scoreless setting. And Jansen Junk did not pitch like Junk. He did give up a home run to Bryce Harper, 7th home run season, but that's all that he'd allow in 5 1/3 innings. John King was the king of giving you a pair of outs out of the bullpen squirrels. Calvin Fauché, a scoreless setting. Alec Picard, 2 scoreless settings, but absolutely nothing doing for the Miami Marlins at the plate. A lot doing for the Red Sox in the 7th inning. They were down 2-0 going into the 7th. They put up a 5 spot to win by a count of 5-4. As for the Tigers, Drake Skubal was supposed to make the start. He hits the injury list, so Tyler Holton is the opener. He gives you a scoreless setting, and Ty Madden, they call him up to the big league level, and he was great. 5 scoreless settings, and then from there you had 4 runs given up in 2/3 of an inning by Ricky Vanasco. He gives up a home run as taking him deep. You had Jaron Duran get his 4th home run of the campaign. From there, Emmanuel De Jesus gives up a run in 1 1/3 innings. Kenley Jansen, a scoreless setting, and Peyton Tolley was a real deal over here for the Red Sox. He gives up 1 hit, 1 walk in 7 innings. He was charged with 2 unearned runs. He was hurt by a pair of errors out there in the field. From there, Garrett Whitlock does give up a pair of runs in his inning of work, but Aroldis Chapman continues to be locked down. Squirrel signing to be able to get that one to the window for the Red Sox. Being able to get this one to the window. The Rays, the second best record out there in the American League, 5-1. They take down the Toronto Blue Jays. For the Jays, just not a lot doing at the plate. Nick Martinez continues to pitch with soft contact. 1 run allowed over the course of 5 innings. Ian Seymour, Kevin Kelly, they combine for 2 scoreless innings. Cole Sulzer, a scoreless inning, and then Casey Lugumina and Brian Baker, they combine for a scoreless 9th. As for the Blue Jays, they leave 10 men on base, and Eric Lauer continues to struggle, gives up 3 runs in 4 1/3 innings, taken deep by the young gun. This was home run number 1 of the season for Ryan Valde. I think that might be his first career home run as well. From there, you had Spencer Miles give up 2 runs in 1 1/3 innings, Mason Fluharty, and out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Tommy Nance, Joe Mantiply, scoreless innings, but Blue Jays offense still not getting online, so that's another W for the Rays. This was another W as you were able to have been a rough year for the San Francisco Giants, but also been a rough year for Fernando Tatis Jr., who stays on 0 home runs as The Giants, they do find a way to persevere. 3-2 the final. Ramon Laureano tried to be able to claw the Padres back. They were down 3-1 going into the ninth inning, and he did go deep for his 5th home run of the season. That comes off of Caleb Killian, who he gets a save, but he does give up that home run in the ninth inning. The other run of the game, Jackson Merrill, 4th home run of the season. That comes off of Trevor Old McDonald, who had a really good start. That's the lone run that he gave up in 7 innings. Keaton Winn, he was able to supply a scoreless inning, and Randy Vasquez gives up 3 runs in 5 2/3 innings. Taken deep by Casey Schmidt, 5th home run of the season. From there, Kyle Hart, and out of the bullpen, scoreless. Bradley Rodriguez, 1 3rd inning scoreless. You had Wandy Peralta come in for a pair of outs out of the bullpen as well, but Padres having a little bit of a tough time generating offense. No shortage of offense for the LA Dodgers, though. 8-3. They're able to take down the Houston Astros as Steven Okert serves as the opener in this one. Gives up a run in 2/3 of an inning before the bulk pitcher Ryan Wise gets absolutely destroyed. Was not wise to have him come in after an opener. 7 runs, 6 of which were earned in 4 1/3 innings. Taken deep by Alex Freeland, 2nd home run of the campaign, and then Kyle Tucker, his 4th home run of the season. From there, Kai Wei Tang, 2 scoreless innings. Bennett Sosa, Brian Abreu, scoreless inning as well, but damage had been done, and Yoshinobu Yamamoto did have a little bit of a rough go of it in this one as well. 3 runs allowed over the course of 6 innings. Does give up a home run to Zach Cole, 1st home run in the campaign, but from there, Kyle Hurt, Blake Trinan, and Jack Dreyer, they're all able to end a scoreless inning. Wind was blowing out over at Wrigley Field, but you still got an under 5-4. The Cubs find a way to be able to persevere as they get a 2 spot in the ninth inning to be able to get the win as Michael Conforto, his 1st home run as a Chicago Cub, walks it off. You actually had a pretty solid start out of Chase Petty. 3 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings. Does give up a home run to Seiya Suzuki. Oh, I see you for home run number 6 of the season, but considering the wind was blowing out, not bad there. Brock and Roll Burke, pair of outs out of the bullpen scoreless. Graham Ashcraft, 5 outs out of the bullpen scoreless, and then Emilio Pagan coughs it up in the ninth inning. He's not very trustworthy. Gives up that home run, 2 runs a total in 2/3 of an inning. Pair of home runs for the Reds as well. J.J. Bleday off of Edward Cabrera's 3rd home run of the season, and he also had a home run number 2 of the season for Brian Hayes. That also comes off of Cabrera, who gives up 3 runs over the course of 6 innings. Hobie Milner, Phil Matone combined for a scoreless inning. Ben Brown gives up a run in an inning, but Ryan Rolson, scoreless 9th inning. He's able to earn the win, and for the Atlanta Braves, they've been the best team in all of baseball, but they're now 25-11. Got up 4-0 against the Seattle Mariners, but they allow a 5 spot in the 6th inning, and that was enough for the Mariners to get the win. 5-4 the final. As for the Mariners, you had J.P. Crawford get his 3rd home run in the campaign, and Luke Raley does not go off. The Raley's 6th home run of the season. For Raley goes deep off of the starter and J.R. Ritchie, who gives up 3 runs over the course of 5 innings, and then other home run comes off of Tyler Kinley, who gives up a pair of runs in his inning work. Carlos Cookie Carrasco along with Aaron Bummer, they were not a bummer. They combined for 2 scoreless innings. Logan Gilbert was. He gives up 4 runs in 6 innings, all solo home runs. Matt Olson, his 12th home run season. Ozzy, Albies. 8th home run season. Austin Riley, his 5th. Drake Baldwin, his 9th, but all solo shots. So the Braves hit 4 home runs, and they lose by kind of 5-4 as Jose Ferreira, Edward Bizardo, they combine for 2 scoreless innings, and Andres Munoz closes the door, scoreless 9th inning. Things are not fine for the LA Angels right now. They fall to 13-23. White Sox blank them by a count of 6-0. As Davis Martin, really good performance here. 10 punch-outs at 7 shutout innings. Sean Newcomb from there, 2 scoreless innings, and Jose Soriano, bit of regression here. 5 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings. Gets taken deep in twice as Miguel Vargas gets his 7th home run of the season, and Mutaka Murakami, league-leading 14th home run season. Mitchell Ferris from there was solid. 1 run allowed over the course of 4 innings. Brent Suter, he gives you a scoreless inning as well, but absolutely nothing doing for the LA Angels at the plate, and there was a lot doing for the New York Yankees. 12-1, they take it to the Baltimore Orioles. The Wizard of Oz, Shane Baz, well, there was no sorcery here. 6 runs allowed in 5 2/3 innings, 5 of which were earned, and he was taken deep by Aaron Judge, his 14th home run season. That's a lone home run that the Yankees would get in their 12-run performance, by the way, as Ynier Cano, Keegan Aiken, Lou Trevino all come in for 2/3 of an inning. Cano and Aiken kept it scoreless, and Trevino, fresh off the scrap heap, gives up 6 runs in 2/3 of an inning. Weston Wilson, he had to come in for an out of the bullpen scoreless, as he's a possession player. That is a backup third baseman. That's not great to say the least, as Cam Schlittler continues to be great, especially with Drake Skubal hitting the injury list. Might be some value on Cy Young for him. 1 run allowed in 5 2/3 innings. Jake Bird gives a bird for an out of the bullpen scoreless. Tim Hill, Camilo Duvall, along with Paul Blackburn, they all walk the plank for a scoreless inning as the Orioles 10 men left on base, 0 of 7 with men in scoring position, so a little bit less than savory there, but this was savory for the Kansas City Royals. They find a way to get the job done against the Cleveland Guardians by a count of 6-2 as Michael Wacha, solid start. 2 runs allowed over the course of 7 innings, was taken deep by David Fry, third home run on the campaign, but Matt Strom, Alex Lang, they could lend a scoreless inning, and Tanner Bybee's been shaky to begin the season, just like last year. 4 runs allowed over the course of 4 innings, gets taken deep by Bobby Witt Jr., third home run season, and Jack Caglione starting to put it together. His 4th home run season that comes off of Matt Festa. No Fiesta giving up that solo home run in 1 2/3 innings. Connor Brogdon, 4 outside the bullpen scoreless, and Peyton Palante was able to come in for a scoreless inning of his own, and for the Milwaukee Brewers, they fall to the St. Louis Cardinals. This by a count of 6-3 as for the Brew Crew, they were unable to get to Kyle Leahy. 1 run allowed in 5 1/3 innings. George Floriano from there, pair of outside the bullpen scoreless. Jojo Romero, Ryan Stanek, they both on his scoreless inning. For Gordon Gassefo, he's been really good this year, but gives up a pair of runs in a third of an inning, taken deep by Bryce Terang in the 9th inning, 5th home run in the campaign, but Riley O'Brien cleans up the mess, pair of outside the bullpen to be able to get the save, and Chad Patrick, not long for this game. 4 runs allowed in 3 1/3 innings. He jacked up his pitch count a little bit, and then DL turned it up all. 1 2/3 innings scoreless. You had a pair of outside the bullpen scoreless from Grant Anderson. 1 1/3 innings from Shane Drone. He gives up a run in the Jake Woodford, former Cardinal. He gives up a run in an inning of his own. And if you're taking a look at trend-wise, what we're getting in Major League Baseball right now, it has very much been an overwhelming season thus far. But last 7 days, the unders have been coming through a little bit more, as the under rate that is sitting at currently 54.3% over the last 7 days. 50 unders, 42 overs, and I believe we've gotten 4 pushes along the way, as well as favorites. They are doing really well the last 7 days. 57 38 on the money line, and taking a look at the entirety of the season, favorites are hitting at 56.3%, 290 and 225 on the money line for those 290 favorites. 60 different favorites failed to cover the run line. If you look at the last 7 days, by the way, the favorites, even though they're hitting like wildfire, they're having a tough time covering the run line. 18 of those 57 favorites that won outright did not cover the run line. Meanwhile, the over rate in baseball is currently 52.4%, 267 overs, 243 unders, and a few pushes along the way. So that's what we're seeing in baseball right now, and that's where we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we do chat it up with our good friend Ben Wilson, who does such great work here at VSIN, right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the VSIN family of podcasts.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. It's always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Ben Wilson aboard. He does such amazing work here at VSiN, doing so much for our live betting coverage, doing a great job keeping his finger on the pulse as one of our main tennis guys, as well as baseball. He, much like myself, a man from the great state of Wisconsin, so we'll certainly be taking a look at the NL Central and so much more, and his play-by-play work is second to none, whether he's doing indoor football, some G League basketball, college baseball. He's a 5-tool broadcaster that you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at his first name Ben, and underscore, the last name Wilson, another underscore, and the number 1 altogether. And Ben, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, absolutely, Greg. And for those of us, who follow the NL Central closely, we, at least for the Brewers, we haven't had a whole lot of these series so far. I know we're talking before game 1 of the St. Louis series, but I'm excited to finally see a little bit more of these litmus tests against, honestly, we have to say it, one of the surprises of the NL for sure, as far as St. Louis, with how good they looked over the weekend.
Yep, and we are doing this out of knowing what happened in the Monday game, but that said, how do you take a look at the St. Louis Cardinals right now? Because we've seen every single team in the NL Central get 18-plus wins. Going into Sunday, there were 5 teams in the NL Central with 18-plus wins, 3 teams in the entire American League with 18-plus wins. That tells you how dominant it's been, but out of the 5 teams, I do feel like St. Louis might be the one that might be most due in for regression, just because I do have some question marks with regards to that starting rotation.
I'm with you, and I believe we talked about this team, probably 3 weeks ago, and I kind of felt at the time like, I wouldn't be shocked if they're sitting there anywhere from 7 to 12 games above 500 at a certain point, whether it's end of April or into mid-May. And here you go. I think there's a lot of things that are good about what St. Louis is doing right now. But like you said, I'm not sure that it is sustainable when you think about, I think, the lack of longevity that you normally see with, and I think just the lack of experience in general. Like, it's great But we've already started to see some regression candidates start to pop, right? And whether it's to the good or to the bad, and St. Louis, I think, definitely represents that. I also just wonder, like, they've found a way to get a lot out of the pen and get some guys in high leverage situations that I didn't think would pitch as well as they have so far. That's where I am curious to see how it plays out. But look, they get a Milwaukee team who, like the best hitters right now for the Brewers have been on the left-handed side. They've been a very lineup where you can kind of against them if you're kind of honing in on left-handed pitchers specifically going up against them. And the pitching, now that Brandon Woodruff, I have no idea how long he's going to be down. We've already seen rough reports from Quinn Priester. He has not been off to the greatest of starts in his rehab appearances. So this is certainly a Brewer team that is not close to 100% full strength. It wouldn't shock me if St. Louis goes in there and at home takes 2 or 3.
Yep, it's going to be really interesting to take a look at game number 2 that is going to be going down on Tuesday, because even though I said it, I do think that the Cardinals are doing for regression. Brandon Sproat is not been the answer for the Milwaukee Brewers. A 6.75 ERA. I recognize that Andre Palante is not necessarily a guy that I want to be backing too much either, but how do you take a look at this specific game? Because I think for the Milwaukee Brewers, you sort of toss the white flag, I wish I could put it any other way, on the Brandon Sproat starts, and you go all out for the other 4 guys that are going to be going in the rotation, because Sproat is just not been able to figure it out this far.
And it's really weird because I was super high on him coming in. I thought his sort of mechanical profile would be a nice fit, just with, he's got a lot of good bite, a lot of downward tilt and the off-speed stuff, and that's usually where Chris Hook and that staff tends to excel with getting the most out of their guys. It's interesting, too. It's not like there's been one thing that's really done Sproat in. He's been a guy, and it's sort of hard for us, I think, as bettors really to know what to do outside of just maybe looking at hits allowed or looking at maybe ways to short some of the longevity of his outings. But he's had starts where he's come out and he's just gotten blasted in the first inning, and then he's actually looked really good. He's had starts, like his last one, he came out, he actually looked really solid first time through the order, and then it just all kind of fell apart. So that's where it's weird for me with Sproat, where you see it in very short stretches. But just over the course of a 5-6 inning outing, for whatever reason, and it's been a little bit of everything, he's had issues with control at times, he's had issues giving up long balls. I'm not ready just to totally say, okay, for the rest of the season, you throw wave the white flag on those starts, because I do think they're still. But it's that he hasn't really been able to put it together in any fashion whatsoever. And, the numbers are what they are, right? And it's not like there's a ton of positive regression that is supposed to be coming his way when you kind of go the deep dive and peek under the hood right now.
Yeah, it's been really rough for him. So that's something that the Brewers are going to need to figure out. That's a little bit of bad news. But good news is the Brewers were able to get reinforcements on Monday. Again, we don't know how Andrew Vaughn and Jackson Chourio looked in their first games in quite a while for the Brewers, but how encouraging was it that they were able to tread water without those 2 guys? Obviously still without Christian Yelich, but the team was still in the top 7, top 8 in terms of run creation. Now adding back in their Chourio coupled with Andrew Vaughn, and as I'm doing this, Chourio got hits in his first 2 at-bats. That has to be very encouraging for this team.
I just think as far as the stacking of the lineups, where for the last couple of weeks it's been, Jake Bauers and Garrett Mitchell have been probably 2 of the most reliable pieces that they've had.
Gary Sanchez, anybody?
Sure. Look, I think to get that added in, to be able to have, now a setup where you get the bats where, and again, it's not like we're expecting them maybe right away to, produce at an extremely high level. At the same time, it's like, the fact they're at least here, you can sprinkle in the more consistent right-handed bats. I just wonder if, Vaughn is, to me, Greg, the big question mark, because, look, this is a guy who was literally left for dead, just on the scrap heap. I mean, he was not somebody that I think was really viewed as an asset in any way whatsoever. Yet he comes out, he has this crazy, feel-good story of a season. And, he's never been a high average guy by any means, obviously plus defense as far as that goes. And I think that's the bigger thing for them, just getting more consistency as a catcher. But what are we getting from the hitting perspective? Are we going to see the same sort of power numbers that he flashed last year? He worked so hard on making consistent contact. Will that carry over now into 2026, especially given all the time off that he's had to deal with? So that's the thing I'm really curious to see, especially as far as the first 2-3 weeks go with Vaughn back in there. You certainly know what you're getting out of Jackson Chourio. I mean, he's as 5 tools you have a player as it gets, and that'll be the biggest add. But I think down the line, it's more of, okay, what kind of Andrew Vaughn do we get in 2026?
Yep, exactly. Because for Vaughn, he was absolutely miserable with the White Sox last year. The moment he came to the Milwaukee Brewers, he was able to get things sorted out. I always have a theory that sometimes the stink of a team, when you're on a team like the White Sox were last year, that sort of seeps into you and you need to get it out of you. And sometimes a change of location is able to do that. That was the case for Andrew Vaughn last season, but we'll see what happens there. As joining me on the show, we've got Ben Wilson, who does such amazing work over here at VSIN, right here on the Baseball Betting Show. And Ben, when it comes to the NL Central, we've obviously talked quite a bit about the Cardinals and the Brewers, but how do you take a look at the other three teams? Because with the Pirates, I don't know if they quite keep this up, but it feels like they're going to be a mainstay. And then you've got the series right now going down between the Reds and the Cubs. And for the Reds, I think that they're just such an intriguing team, mainly because they entered in the day on Monday 20-14 with a negative run differential, which typically is a sign of regression coming.
It usually is, right? Of all the teams I've watched, I mean, I came away so impressed with Pittsburgh, and I get it. One of those games was Paul Skeens looking like Superman that he, seemingly is every fifth day. So when you have him going 20% of your starts, you feel like you're going to be in pretty good shape as far as that goes. But I did think that, at least from my perspective, some of the bullpen arms that Pittsburgh has, I've really liked, and how they've been able to kind of mix and match some of the late game tunes and matchups, so to speak. I do think that's a team that is probably going to be a little more than just stay, all right, you bet him when Skeens is on the mound and you probably stay away when he's not. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me. I'd say, and you're right on Cincinnati, I still don't have a great feel on the Reds as far as what to really expect out of them going forward. How often have they been, everybody's darling, so to speak, as far as a sleeper team coming out of the division, and they'll have stretches where they look great, and then it ends up just all coming back down to earth at some point. So for the Cubs, I think the one good thing is, they finally got Matthew Boyd a couple of starts and looked at least better over the weekend against the Diamondbacks. I think for them, having already been down one starter at the beginning of the year, that's massive to at least get him back in a semi-reasonable form now, and you hope that only climbs as the year goes on. So I think that's at least a plus for Chicago. And if we're talking, you were mentioning, Greg, with all the Brewer guys out in the lineup and being able to tread water, I mean, honestly, the fact that the Cubs are still in the position that they're in, and they've been able to tread water with so many guys down and not really hitting it all this early in the year with the wind blowing in and colder temperatures at Wrigley, I think they, as much as it was easy to kind of throw cold water on them early in the year, I do think they are going to be in a pretty good position, having at least kind of gotten through and ridden the wave of this rough spell, and now they are looking pretty dangerous.
Yep, they are very much looking dangerous, and it's a lot of fun to be able to take a look at them, and we've done a great job looking at the NL Central, but I do have to bring this up. Out there in the National League, we've obviously had some pleasant surprises, looking at quite a few teams in the NL Central, and then we've got the Philadelphia Phillies and also the New York Mets, who have been skid marks on the underpants of baseball thus far this season. And how do you take a look at these two teams? Because the Phillies pitching has looked much better ever since Don Mattingly took over. It feels like there might be some positivity there. The Mets, congratulations, they were able to win a game on Monday, but I look at these two teams and it's been absolutely nightmarish, and I see a world where the Phillies could be able to claw their way back and be able to make a little bit of a charge towards the postseason. I just don't know if I see that for the Mets, even though they're coming off of back-to-back wins as we record this.
Right. I tend to agree with you on that. And even having been, I feel like it's been a swing and a miss so far for me on being in on Aaron Nola as a candidate for a bounce back this year. And I mean, anybody you were high on for Philadelphia really has just looked awful. So it's not like
aside for Christopher Sanchez. Yay, Christopher Sanchez.
Yeah, right. The bright spots have been few and far between. I guess the only thing I would say as far as the Mets go, and it's not like I'm in on them or saying you should throw in some, look at some futures pricing on them. However, we were all kind of ready to crown them at this time. Remember last year? I mean, they could not have looked any better the first stretch of the season. And look at how that ended up finishing for the Mets. So this stuff can change so quickly, even though there are a lot of negative historical stats that do not pretend kindly to the situation that the Mets and Phillies are in right now, just as it relates to, super long losing streak at any point in the season, especially this early, and being able to overcome it. But that's all I would say. It's not like for us, we're betting baseball daily. Like, they're going to have stretches where they show up and they look better. In the Freddie Peralta instances, even though I was, more down on him coming into the year, he's at least been out there every fifth day. Like, he's at least been somewhat consistent, and that's not been a word that really jives with anything for the Mets so far. So it's not like you can really sit there and say, okay, like the market hasn't adjusted, it's time to just fade him every day. Well, look, the market has adjusted. We're a month into the season. We've got plenty of data and a good amount of sample size out there. So it's not like you're getting any bargains at this point trying to fade those two teams.
Yep, absolutely. And For Freddie Peralta, he's not been Sean Manaea. He's at least making starts, and he doesn't have an ERA above a 6. So that's a good thing for them, as it's just all gone horribly wrong. We both have a lot of familiarity with Devin Williams. That's not been good, to say the least, either of the stops out there in New York. So that's been intriguing to look at, to say the least. And Ben, is there maybe a team or two that we haven't mentioned that you currently have your eye on, whether that be a bet for Tuesday, whether that be a team that you're feeling bullish/bearish on, just anything in particular that you're looking at and you're seeing a little bit of value, whether it be betting or fading?
It's coming off probably his worst start of the year. And I mean, it seems like there was some probable regression when I think he had like a 2 ERA and a sub-1 whip the first 4 or 5 starts. But I have really liked what I've seen out of Parker Messick and the Guardians, and I'm going to give him a go, I think, when he comes up in the order next. He is due up here in a couple days, and I just love the stuff, how they've developed him in the Cleveland organization. I think he's been one of those guys who I wouldn't say came out of nowhere. One of those pitchers, if you were big into fantasy circles, he was a very popular sleeper coming into the year, and he's shown why. Like he's got a lot of swing and miss stuff in the arsenal. He's lived up to the billing to this point. Even his rough outings, it's not like he's been getting shelled. It's like giving up, 4 runs and 5 2/3 or in 6, something like that. So I look at Messick is a guy who's definitely on my playlist, so to speak. And it's part of this AL Central that it seems like is the same thing every year. It's just super Jekyll and Hyde. You don't have a team that's really standing out. And so when that tends to happen, I like to sort of isolate on some of these specific pitchers in general who I deem to be trustworthy and can certainly carry their weight in a division and a potential matchup where, more often than not, you're not having any of these teams that are going to blow you away from a lineup perspective. That's the one guy I think maybe a name to keep an eye on. And the market has definitely, I think, certainly been favorable towards him. And I think a lot of bettors are certainly following that train. But I don't see that completely falling off to the degree that maybe some of these other regression candidates might in the next month or so.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be really interesting to look at this moving forward. And with Parker Messick, he's gotten off to such a nice start to the season. Again, I'm with you. I don't know if he necessarily maintains that, but he clearly has been really good for the Guardians, and he looks like an ace in the making. They always find a way to manufacture great arms out there in Cleveland, just like you always find a way to be able to give us such great insights, my friend. Ben, let the good people at home know what's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Hey, absolutely. We're in the middle of college baseball. Postseason starts in a couple weeks. I'll be out in Mesa for that. All those games on ESPN+. So Ben_Wilson_1. Excited for this next few week stretch. Always one of the best of the year.
Absolutely. Every single time Ben joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Ben for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. Coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSIN Family Podcast. Always a pleasure to be joined by Ben Wilson, who does such great work over here at VSIN. His play-by-play work is second to none, whether that be indoor football, college baseball, college basketball, you name it, he does it. And every single time he joins me, lends such great insight. So big thanks to Ben for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Tuesday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that, as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_81. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is where we go with the National League games first in time order, then the American League games in time order, any interleague games, those are going to be at the bottom. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. So, but if we get things started, this is 9:01, 9:02 on the card. The Cincinnati Reds, yes, we are on to Cincinnati. They're onto the road. They're going to be facing off against the Chicago Cubs as Jameson Taillon is on the bump for the Cubs. Andrew Abbott goes for the Reds. The Reds find themselves as an underdog here, plus 130, and we're between minus 148 to as high as minus 170 is that number on the Reds. Initial opening total I'm seeing is an 8. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105 with that Cubs run line being about plus 120. Personally, if I had to play anything right now, I need at least a plus 150 to take a shot on the Reds on the money line, but I'm seeing getting a run and a half at a minus 140. That's where I'd be looking. I would be willing to lay up to a minus 148 with the Cubs on the money line, but right now I'm mostly seeing about minus 150 plus, so I'd be looking at that run and a half, and I do recognize that it has been a less than tremendous season for Andrew Abbott. I did think that the low ERA that he had last season was not going to be necessarily a mainstay, as last season posted up a 287 ERA, 366 fielding independent, with only about 8.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, and that's gone down to about 6.2 strikeouts per 9 innings this year. He struggled with the 3.9 walks per 9 innings. I also do see some regression with James Santayan, but here's the kicker. The wind should be blowing in towards the beginning part of the game now. It's going to be a little bit more directional towards the back half of the game, and it's not going to be as, shall we say, strong as it was yesterday. Yesterday, you had some very strong winds, looking like we're getting more like 6-7 miles per hour, with, again, it blowing in a little bit, it being a little bit more directional, though, as well. So I did set a total here of a 7.6. I have gone a little bit lower, so I'm going to be in on this total under, and that's part of the reason why I do like the run half here with the Reds. And for James Santayan, 441 ERA, but a 595 fielding independent, 2.3 home runs, 3.4 walks per 9 innings, so the win situation should be able to help him out a little bit as well. And when it comes to this Reds lineup, it has been one that has been scuffling a little bit this year, bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. I mean, you've had Sal Stewart and Ellie De La Cruz really be able to step up. Both guys entered into yesterday, along with Nathaniel Lowe, between a 340 to a 350 on base. Recognize that Sal had a rough last week and a half or so, but still 8+ home runs, he'll be fine. Ellie De La Cruz has been able to give you 9+ bombs, and Eugenio Suarez being out of the lineup has been rough, because you got the likes of Tyler Stevenson, TJ Friedel, Will Benson, Brian Hayes hitting a 205 or lower, so it's very much a hit or miss lineup right now, though GJ Bleday has stepped up, and for the Cubs, this has been a top 16 in terms of run creation. Moises Ballesteros, Carson Kelly, and Miguel Amaya, all three of your catchers give you at least a 370 on base. That's been impressive. Nico Horner hitting a 300, and he's up with his power with about 4 home runs. Peter Armstrong, it's been a tough year for him at the plate, but 2 home runs over the last 10 days. Looks like he's getting a bit back online. Michael Busch as well, but that's been rough. Getting back Seiya Suzuki has helped them out, and both of these teams entered in the series right around about league average in terms of bullpen ERA. The Reds had a good first month of the season with their bullpen, but that has really regressed, and for the Cubs, they're just dealing with a bunch of injuries. Caleb Theobar, Hunter Harvey, Riley Martin. You've got Porter Hodge out for the season, so getting back Daniel Palencia is huge. I like Ben Brown, what he's able to provide in the bullpen, but they're on a little bit of fumes there, and for the Cincinnati Reds, I just don't trust an Emilio Pagan at the closer spot, but do have a pair of guys in Graham Ashcraft, Tony Santillan that I do believe in. Now, Pierce Johnson is on the bereavement list. You wish him well. Brock and Roll Burke last year, he had a sub 350 ERA. He's been relatively solid thus far this season, so do you think that you get a bit of a lower scoring game? Like I said, a minus 140 or better, I'm going to take a run half here with the Reds, and do like the under. So I tell it's 7.6, 903, 904 on the card. It's the Brewers on the road against the Cardinals. Andre 3000 Palante is on the bump for the Cards, and Brandon Sprout goes for the Brewers, and the Brewers are between even money to minus 105. Meanwhile, minus 115 to minus 120 is that number on St. Louis, and their total is between 7.5 to 8. On the 8, the under is minus 110, and so is the over, and on the 7.5, over is minus 120, and the under is even money, and I'm going to be looking at the over. I set the Brewers at a plus 127, so I'm going to be willing to lay with Cardinals, because Brandon Sprout is just not a guy that I'm willing to trust in right now. He had an okay few starts with the Mets last season, but 6.75 ERA with a 6.37 fielding independent, 2.4 home runs, 5.1 walks per 9 innings. That has been very much less than amazing, to say the least. And then for our good friend Andre 3000 Palante, he's got a relatively solid ERA, but if you look at the advanced numbers, he's really not been impressing too much in my opinion. 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is actually the highest of his career, but 4 walks per 9, 1.1 home runs per 9, 373 ERA, 468 fielding independent, going big against a Brewers team that is currently in the top 5 in terms of run creation. This despite the fact that the Milwaukee Brewers, as we know, this has not been a team that's necessarily been lighting the world on fire with regards to home run power. Now, getting back Jackson Chirinos should be able to help out quite a bit, but you have to figure that it's going to take a few days for him to be able to get reacclimated. Looks like Andrew Vaughn should be getting back in the fold as well, but again, with the Brewers getting back these guys, while it helps them out, maybe not day number 1, day number 2, they're going to need a little bit of time to be able to acclimate themselves. And when it comes to the St. Louis Cardinals, it's a lineup that has been just a hair above league average in terms of run scoring. You've been able to get a great amount of power out of Jordan Walker. He's up to 9 home runs, so he's went a little bit colder here in the last few weeks, but you still have Ivan Herrera who's been able to give you darn near 400 on base. You've been able to get good production out of J.J. Weatherholt, 7 home runs. He's been able to supply you with about a 350 on base. Alec Burleson continues to move the line. Need a bit more out of someone like Victor Scott, who's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200, and Nolan Gorman, 5 home runs and less than a 300 on base. Need a little bit more there. And for the Brewers, even though they aren't necessarily the world's greatest power hitting team, and again, you're going to need some of these guys to be able to reacclimate themselves into the lineup. William Contreras is hitting darn near 300. David Hamilton has been able to give you over 350 on base. Brandon Lockridge has been solid, and the Brewers do have the leg up in terms of bullpen. They've been about league average in terms of their ERA. That's because Abner Uribe, Trevor McGill, they had shaky starts to the season after having a sub 325 ERA. They're starting to figure it out. Aaron Ashby, DL Turnett Paul have been able to give you a sub 325 ERA, and then for the St. Louis Cardinals, you just have had a case where this team has been trying to figure out their bullpen. Ryan Stanek has clearly not been the answer over at 70 ERA. George Mariano was never the answer. Matt Savanson has been awful, but I think Jojo Romero, sub 350 ERA last season, looks like he's rounding back into form. Gordon Gassefo has been able to give you about a 1 ERA. I like what Riley O'Brien brings to the table as well, and I do think that the Brewers are going to be able to get some runs up on the board, but just don't trust in Sprout. So I told it at 80.7, like the over, and for the Cardinals, we'll lay up to minus 126 on the money line. 9-5, 9-6 on the card. The Metropolitans are on the road against the Rockies as Michael Lorenzen is on the bump for the Rockies, and Freddie Peralta goes for the Mets. The Mets do find themselves as a good-sized favorite here. They are minus 165 to minus 170 favorites, plus 139 to plus 147 is that number on the Rockies with a total of 10. Right now, the over is minus 105 and the under is minus 105, seeing a straight 9.5. That over is minus 125, under is plus 105. Now, you are having some inclement weather out there at Coors, but even with that, I did come to a total of an 11.2. I do like the over mainly because Michael Lorenzen has not been great at home, to say the least. His ERA is about an 8.53 at home. Hasn't necessarily given up the deep ball too much, but he's a guy that has always pitched a lot of contact. He never really gets above 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, and Freddie Peralta last year had that 270 ERA. You figured that was going to be going up. He's been posting up an ERA more around about a 3.52 thus far this season, with walks once again being an issue, about 3.8 walks per 9 innings. Now, the bigger issue for the Mets is I'm sure that they want a little bit more out of Freddie Peralta, but man, this lineup has been just a complete and utter abomination. Right now, they are a bottom 3 team in terms of run creation. They were able to get going a little bit more yesterday, and Coors Field is just going to be able to do that for you, but Bo Bichette has been a big giant waste of money. He's right now giving you less than a 300 on base. I don't know what they were thinking in terms of the Marcus Semien trade. That was not a smart one, to say the least. You've got a guy in Francisco Alvarez who had 4 home runs early on during the season, and he really has not given you anything ever since then, so that's been a big giant issue. Mark Vientos is starting to pick it up. He had that multi-home run game against the Angels, so it does feel like he's getting a little bit more online, and you do have a guy in Carson Benjay who he's looked a little bit better here recently. He was able to get a home run yesterday, so that helps out the team, but other than Juan Soto, you take a look at the guys that were in the starting lineup yesterday, really only MJ Melendez entered into the game, hitting above a 250, and then for the Colorado Rockies, this has been a team that has been a little bit rough with their offense. They're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation, but Mickey Moniak has had a really nice year thus far. He's been able to supply 9+ home runs. He's hitting above a 300. You've had TJ Brownfield, Troy Johnson, these young guys be able to step up, and for the Rockies, I recognize that they're right around about 20th in terms of bullpen ERA, but considering their home ballpark is Coors Field, that's not too bad. They need Victor Vodnik to get back online. He's been posting up an ERA above a 6, but Jaden Hill, Jimmy Harrigan, along with Juan Mejia, they were able to supply sub-4 ERAs last season, and for the Mets, it was a bit of mix and match yesterday. They did have to use up Austin Warren quite a bit, and Oscar Brisbane was the opener, but Brisbane, Brooks Raley, these guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA thus far this season. The main issue has been Luke Weaver along with Devin Williams, and it does feel like Weaver is starting to get online a little bit more. So with the Mets, I did set their money line price at a minus 158. If you're going to be looking to lay a run half with them, you're finding that right around minus 105 to a minus 110. I wouldn't want to go past the minus 105, but I did set mine at a minus 107, and I do think that they get to Lorenzen here. So like the oversub, I told 11.2, and I'm willing to take that Mets run line. 907, 908 on the card. It is the Pirates. They're going to be on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Eduardo Rodriguez goes for the Saints, and Bubba Chandler is on the bump for the Pirates. Pirates do find themselves as a slim underdog here, as you're going to be catching them anywhere between plus 102 to a plus 105, minus 120 to minus 125 is that number on Arizona, and your total is 9. The under is anywhere between minus 110 to a minus 115, and the over is minus 105 to a minus 110. I did set the Diamondbacks here at a minus 133, so I'm going to be looking at them on the money line. For Eduardo Rodriguez, he has looked much better this year than he has the last few seasons. I'm still not completely sold on Eduardo Rodriguez, and I do think that he's a good candidate for regression, as right now he's supplying a 3.03 ERA. Look at that fielding independent of a 4.86, so 4.4 walks, 6.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. That without question is very concerning, but still, it's been a little bit of a renaissance year for him. And Bubba Chandler has some relatively solid swing and miss stuff. He needs to figure it out a little bit more at the big league level, but I think that he's going to be pretty solid moving forward. I would say that we should expect some positivity on the current 4.97 ERA that he's had this far this season. He's getting about 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. The big issue has been the walk, 6.2 walks per 9 innings. That's a big reason why he's got a 5.70 fielding independent. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks last year, this was a team that was in the top 5 in the big leagues in terms of run creation. They've been a little bit closer to league average this season if you take out that Mexico City series. And when it comes to Corbin Carroll, he's been able to do a relatively good job in terms of moving the line. His on-base percentage has been above a 375. He's been able to give you functional power, but the power numbers have been down a little bit down for this team this season. Lourdes Gurriel has hit below the middle line of 200, and he's been banged up for much of the year. Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte has been able to give you 5 home runs, but still, you would expect him to have an on-base percentage higher than right around about a 300 or so where he's at right now. Ilyarmo Vargas has been absolutely tremendous. 6 home runs, hitting a 382. He had that massive hit streak, so he has been able to do an amazing job there. And Nolan Arenado right now is hitting a 275, 5 home runs. He's been able to do a nice job on that front. Meanwhile, for the Pittsburgh Pirates, a much improved lineup. I will say they're averaging more than a full run per game more when they're away from home rather than at home. But O'Neal Cruz, after he was hitting right around the middle line of a 200 last year, he's been able to do a much better job in terms of consistently getting on base. Leads away with 9 home runs, about a 322 on base. Brian Reynolds, he's been able to supply a 4-runner on base, so he's done a great job in terms of being one of the table setters for the team, moving the line, fighting way on. And Ryan O'Hearn, I thought was a sneaky good ad during the offseason, over a 390 on base. He's been able to supply you with 5 home runs as well. They've been doing this all with Marcell Ozuna being rough, and Connor Griffin has been able to get online. For the Pirates, this also has been a team that's been in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen area, and I do trust their bullpen a little bit more than that of the Arizona Diamondbacks. Paul Sewell back down to 4 ERA. Juan Murillo has actually been solid, but I don't know how much of a mainstay that's going to be. And when you have Kevin Ginkgo at an ERA above a 6 last year, hard to be able to trust in that now. Gregory Soto is still a guy that I don't trust, and he's actually had a really nice start to the season, but we have seen him act up in the past, so that's something that I very much take note of. But Evan Sisk, Yohan Ramirez, these guys have been able to give you sub 3 ERA. Dennis Santana's right around about a 3 ERA as well. So these guys have been able to do a relatively solid job. I do think that there's a bit of regression here for Eduardo Rodriguez. I also do think that there's going to be some positivity, though, for the Arizona Diamondbacks lineup, and ball does fly out there in the desert a little bit more, so made a total of 9.2, like the over, and with the Diamondbacks, going to lay up to minus 132 on that money line. 9-9, 9-10 on the card. It's the Slam Diego Padres. They are going to be on the road against the San Francisco Giants. We do know that Walker Buehler is going to be on the bump for the Padres. Right now, the betting board reads to be determined for the San Francisco Giants, and that is a big reason why this game is presently off the board. This should be Logan Webb, and if it's not Logan Webb, I'd be quite surprised if it is indeed Logan Webb. I did set the Giants here as a big-time favorite. I set them at a minus 154, so minus 153 or less. Going to be looking at the Giants, a plus 155 or higher. I'd be in on the San Diego Padres, and then I did set a total here of a 7.6, so a 7.5 or less. I'm going to be in on the over, and 8 or higher to the under end. With Logan Webb, it's been a little bit more shaky for him this far this season, but with Logan Webb, he's always got those very demonstrative home and road splits, and he's pitched much better than what the raw ERA would indicate, because you look at that ERA right now for Logan Webb, it's an unsightly 4.30, but still, the fielding independent numbers right now at 3.47, he's still giving up only 0.6 home runs per 9 innings, so he's still been a relatively effective pitcher. The strikeout stuff has been down, 7.8 strikeouts per 9 innings, and as we all know, San Francisco, it is one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all of baseball, so he's very much going to be able to take advantage of that. And if you look at just for his career, and this is the entirety of his career, he has been a guy that has given up at home about 0.5 home runs per 9 innings. He still only gives up about 0.8 or so home runs per 9 innings away from home, so he's always been good in terms of reducing on the hard contact, but ERA goes down to 291 at home, 395 away from home. Flip side, you've got a guy in Walker who's been a little bit better this season. If you look at the advanced numbers for Walker Buehler, the ERA is still not amazing, to say the least. He has still been really having his struggles with a 5.40 ERA, but that fielding independent is more in the neighborhood about a 3.43. He's given up just 0.4 home runs per 9 innings, 8.5 strikeouts, and 4.3 walks per 9 innings, and he does get the gift of going up against a San Francisco Giants lineup that is dead stinking blasted the big leagues in terms of their run creation, it just has not been great with Rafael Devers, along with Willy Adames being big, giant waste of money right now. You expected so much out of these guys, and they have not been able to deliver any boom whatsoever, which is unfortunate because you have a team that's able to get on base with having someone like a Luis Ariz, who's been able to about a 300. Jung Ho Lee has been hitting in the neighborhood about a 300. Matt Chapman has given you absolutely no power whatsoever, but he's been able to give you about a 320 on base. But with Willy Adames and Rafael Devers, less than 3 home runs apiece, both are giving you less than a 275 on base. So that has just completely marred the team thus far this season. Then on the flip side, you've got a San Diego Padres unit that has been having Fernando Tatis Jr. give you 0 home runs thus far this season. That needs to go northward. Jake Cronenworth has been a big giant disappointment. Freddie Fermin at the catcher spot is giving you nothing whatsoever. So, it's been a lineup that they themselves have left something to be desired. You've got Xander Bogaerts, Manny Machado leading the way with 5 home runs apiece, but Machado hitting just a 230. You've been able to get some good production on Miguel Andujar hitting a 300, so I expect him to get more at-bats moving forward. And for both of these teams, they both have a relatively solid bullpens. You've got the Padres with Mason Miller, who's the best closer in all of baseball. Jason Adam is back to about a 2 ERA, though Audrey Morjon has acted up a little bit, and Wandy Peralta can be a bit hit or miss along Jeremiah Estrada. And going into the series, San Francisco Giants were actually number 1 in terms of bullpen ERA in the National League. This despite the fact that you've got Eric Miller, Yoel Figueroa on the injury list, as the likes of Matt Gage, Caleb Killian, Ryan Walker have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. So these guys have stepped up in a big way. So I do think that you're going to get a lower scoring game here, 7.5 or less, like the over, 8 or higher. I'm going to be in on the under, and for the Giants, willing to lay up to a minus 153 on the money line, plus 155 or better. I'm going to be willing to take a shot here on the San Diego Padres. 9-11, 9-12 on the card. You've got the Red Sox, and they're going to be on the road against the Detroit Tigers, as Framber Valdez is on the bump for the Tigres, and Brian Bayo goes for the Red Sox. And the Red Sox between plus 150 to plus 160 underdogs, minus 175 to minus 195. That number on Detroit, and total on this game, you're getting it at an 8. The over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And we can get to a plus 162, which when we get the dime lines, because right now I'm doing this with most of the places that do not offer the dime lines, we should be able to get there on the Red Sox. So I do anticipate in some form of capacity being able to get there on the Red Sox in this ordeal. Brian Bayo, he's been able to do a solid job in terms of pitching to soft contact. He's never really been a strikeout artist. You even go back to last season, he was posting up fewer than 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he's not going to be some sort of maestro with that regard, but he does a nice job with his off-speed stuff, and that 9.12 ERA, I do think that it's going to be coming down very much so. Prior to this year, I'd never given up more than 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Currently, he's at 2.8 home runs and 5.3 walks per 9 innings. I don't think that he's as amazing as the 3.35 ERA that he had last season. I don't think that he's been as bad as he has been right now, so I think that it's going to be somewhere between A and B. And for Framber Valdez, he's been able to have himself a relatively nice season thus far with the Detroit Tigers. Last season, in his last 10 starts with the Houston Astros, he did give up 4+ runs in 8 out of his last 10 appearances, so that no doubt was a massive issue for him, but he's been able to bounce off of that with a 3.35 ERA, 3.40 fielding dependent to begin the series, and give it up to 0.4 home runs per 9 innings. Strikeout stuff is way down, 7.1 strikeouts per 9 innings, and with Tariq Skubal hitting the injury list and having an impromptu bullpen game after really having a bullpen game on Sunday Night Baseball as well, the Tigers are going to need a bunch of length. Framber Valdez is typically pretty good in terms of being able to provide that, and it's a Tigers team that has been about league average in terms of bullpen ERA this far this season, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of positivity with a lot of these guys, as I do know that Will Vest is going to be on the injury list, but you've got someone like Brant Herter who's probably going to be out for this game because they've just utilized him so much in the last few games, but he's giving you a sub 3.50 ERA. You've got a guy in Birch Smith who's been able to play about a sub 3 ERA as well. John Brebbia is returning for this team, and for the Tigers, they were really struggling in terms of being able to have power towards the beginning part of the season, but Spencer Torkelson is up to 5+ home runs this season, so he's been able to do a nice job in terms of riding the ship. Additionally, you've been able to get really good production out of Kevin McGonigal thus far, who's been hitting above a 300. Riley Green, even though the power numbers are down, he's still giving you over a 375 on base, and though Torkelson hits for just a 225, Spencer Torkelson, 5 home runs, 350 on base after he was a little bit slow going with regards to the power. Cole Keith continues above a 300 as well, and for the Red Sox, this is a bottom 10 team in terms of run creation. They just have not gotten what they expected out of many of their infielders. Trevor Story, Caleb Durbin, these are guys hitting below a 225 with not necessarily a lot of power. Weiler Ray has been able to give you 375 on base, and even though you don't get a lot of batting average out of Roman Anthony, and he was yanked from the game early yesterday, he has been able to give you 354 on base. His understudy, Masataka Yoshida, has been able to give you 4 on base, so it's a team that moves the line. They're just not providing a lot of power. And then for the Boston Red Sox, additionally, you've had a bullpen that has dealt with quite a few injuries as well. Justin Slayton, Danny Kalum being on the injury list. They were number 2 in terms of bullpen ERA last season. Garrett Woodlock, Aroldis Chapman are providing a sub 3.25 ERA. Greg Weiser at above a 5 ERA. We should see some positivity there, but that said, I do think that the 8 just a scotch too low, especially with the Red Sox being a team that last year was 6th in terms of run creation. I do think that they bounce back a little bit here, so plus 162 or better. And on the Red Sox on the money line, I do like the over, so I might tell it at 8.1. 913, 914 on the card. It's the Blue Jays on the road against the Rays as Drew Rasmussen is on the bump for the Rays, and Kevin Gausman goes for the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays who find themselves between a plus 104 to plus 105 underdogs, minus 125 to minus 126 at number on the Rays. 7 is the total, over is minus 120. The under is even, and did set my total 7.4. So I am going to be in on this total to the over. I did set my money line price at a minus 117. When we get the dime lines out, I am thinking that we should be able to find a little bit of value on the Rays. If worse comes worse, if I'm willing to lay a run half here with the Tampa Bay Rays, right now I'm finding that at about plus 175, and that would be a buy point for me. So in some form of capacity, I'm going to be in on the Rays. I'm thinking I should be able to get that minus 116 or better on the money line, but again, if worse comes to worse, I'll just be looking at the run line, because for Kevin Gausman, he's had an absolutely tremendous start to the season. He's not a guy that I necessarily want to be fading. Right now, he's been able to see a nice uptick with regards to his swing and miss stuff from a season ago. He's back over 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 3.10 ERA, but a 3.37 fielding dependent, with giving out just 1.8 walks per 9 innings. So I've loved what I've seen there, but Drew Rasmussen, even though he's not necessarily going to be some sort of strikeout artist or anything for the Tampa Bay Rays, he's a guy that I very much have been trusting in as well. He's been able to do a tremendous job this season with a 2.64 ERA and a 3.67 fielding dependent, up to 9.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. The one issue that you do have with him is that he has been giving up the 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, but it's a very banged up Blue Jays lineup right now that has been dealing with all sorts of injuries, with George Springer and don't call his name, Oleander Kirk, currently being out of the fold. And for the Blue Jays, it's a team that has actually been able to do a really good job in terms of moving the line, getting on base, but power hasn't been there. Vlad Guerrero Jr. going into the series has just 2 home runs, even though his on-base percentage has been well above a 400. Keep in mind, last year, just 23 home runs out of him. Miles Straw, Ernie Clement are both hitting above a 280. Andres Jimenez is back hitting above a 255. Don Varsho has been able to give you a little bit more average than a season ago, but last year, his home runs per at-bat rate was right around about 12, and that's doubled this season. Kazuma Okamoto has actually been your top home run hitter, and for the Blue Jays, it's a bullpen that has been neither here nor there. It feels like they've really been able to figure out something over the last few weeks, as Tyler Rogers, Braden Fisher, along Louis Varland, entered into the weekend with a sub 3.25 ERA. I know that Fisher got lit up a little bit, but all in all, these guys have been able to do a pretty solid job holding down the fort. And for the Rays, it is a team that's in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, but Brian Baker, Cole Sulzer, the former Orioles, are giving you a sub 3.50 ERA, and I do think that Hunter Biggie is going to be able to bounce back a little bit. And Rays are a team that, even though they're going to be in the Trop, and that's going to suppress their offense more than they did last season at Steinbrenner Stadium, they've been able to do a good job in terms of putting runs up on the board. Johnny DeLucas out hitting at 275, Junior Caminero, 44 home runs last year. He's over at 350 on base with 8+ home runs to begin this season. Ryan Vilde is a guy that they recently called up, and he's been able to move the line, get on base. Jonathan Randa's back above a 350 on base with quite a bit of power as well. So I do think that both of these starters give you a good start, but again, with the Blue Jays at bullpen and just being banged up, I do like the Rays here in some form or capacity. I'm hoping for that minus 116 on the money line. If worse comes to worse, I'll take a plus 175 on the run line, and I do like the over of 7 semi-total at a 7.4. 915, 916 on the card. The Rangers are on the road against the Yankees, as Jacob deGrom is on the bump for the Rangers. Currently, it is listed as Elmer Rodriguez. He just got announced as a starter for the Yankees, and right now the Yankees do find themselves as a mid-tier favorite. You're going to be finding them minus 120 to minus 130. Between even money to plus 110 is that number on the Rangers. 8.5 is a total, over and under, both at minus 110, and I do like the under. I said I tell that at 8.2. Jacob deGrom is looking like the Jacob deGrom that we all know and love. He's been able to supply this team with a 2.01 ERA. His strikeouts per 9 rate is back up to 11.5. He is giving up still a little bit over a home run per 9 innings. Since getting into Texas, he has dealt with some of the hard contact issues just a little bit, but overall, this is looking like the guy that we all know and love. And for Elmer Rodriguez, he's got a lot of upside. He made his first career start a few days ago, as a matter of fact, against this very Rangers team. I feel like you could tell that he was very, shall we say, skittish in that start. He had 4 walks in the 4 innings. He only gave up 2 runs, and he wasn't necessarily a superpower pitcher at the AAA level this year. He's only getting 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Now for his career at the minor league level, closer to about 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he does have quite a few command issues. He does a good job, though, in terms of inducing soft contact, and this has been a Rangers team that has been in the bottom 10 of the big leagues in terms of run creation. You do have Corey Seager along with Jake Berger, who have been able to give you 6 home runs apiece, but but both of these guys are hitting below a 235. They just have not been able to move the line for you. I've absolutely loved what I've been seeing thus far out of Brandon Nimmo. Nimmo has been able to do a nice job hitting above a 275, so he's been able to supply quite a bit for this unit, but all in all, you do have a Rangers team that they just need to be getting a little bit more in general. Wyatt Langford has been dealing with injuries all season long. They've got Alejandro Ozuna, who's been able to do a pretty good job in terms of stepping up for the team. He's been able to above a 275, but the real forte of this Rangers team is actually their bullpen. They're currently number one in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've got amazing performances out of Jacob Junis thus far this season. He had a sub-3 ERA with the Cleveland Guardians last year. Got a guy in Cole Winn who had a sub-2 ERA last season. Not quite duplicating that this season, but he's been solid. Someone like Tyler Alexander is able to fill innings for you. Same goes for Jalen Beeks. And then for the Yankees, Camilo Doval has had over 5 ERA. You do have the likes of a Brent Hedrick. Tim Hill had a sub-350 ERA last season. Fernando Cruz is relatively solid. So, you do have still quite a few good options out there in the bullpen, but I do think that for the Rangers, their overall pitching is going to be able to keep things out in front of them and help them out to the victory here. You've got a Yankees team that obviously has been one of the best in all baseball in terms of being able to generate runs, with Aaron Judge giving you a double-figure amount of homers. He's back up to a 400 on base. Ben Rice has been able to give you 10-plus home runs, and he's been moving the line with over a 375 on base, but a lot of these infielders, like Ryan McMahon, the entirety of the catcher spot, Paul Goldschmidt, these guys hitting at 215 or lower, Jazz Chisholm, they have been a big issue. Trent Grisham has given you nothing whatsoever, so with the Rangers, I made them the favorite of a minus 108. Like them on the money line, and I'm going to be in on this total under semi-total at an 8.2, 917, 918 on the card. The Guardians are going to be on the road facing off against the Royals as Kevin Williams goes for the Guardians and Noah Cameron is on the bump for the Royals. Royals do find themselves as a underdog here. You're going to be catching them between even money to plus 105. Meanwhile, minus 120 to minus 126. That is your number on the Cleveland Guardians. Total is 8. The over and the under are both at minus 110. I did set a total here of an 8.7. I do like the over. I recognize that Gavin Williams has been a really nice strikeout artist thus far this season, and I think that he is going to be able to do some good things this season. The command has been a big giant issue with him, though, and that's something that I think is going to be catching up with him sooner rather than later, and if I'm not mistaken, it did catch up with him a little bit more in his last start as well against the Toronto Blue Jays, his last road start. He gave up 6 runs in that one. Overall, 270 ERA, 389 fielding dependent, though. As I mentioned, the 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, but 1.2 home runs, 3.9 walks per 9 innings. That's just not sustainable for a sub-3 ERA. And then on the flip side, Noah Cameron, I felt like was a really lucky pitcher last season. He's not necessarily some guy that's going to go out there, give you a lot of strikeouts, pitches quite a bit of contact, and that has really reared its ugly head thus far this season. A 5.40 ERA with a 4.47 fielding dependent, 1.4 home runs, 3.1 walks allowed per 9 innings, and unfortunately for him, the Royals bullpen has taken a big step back. They lose on El Zerpa in the offseason. Right now, they're dealing with an injury to their closer in Carlos Estevez. Matt Strahm, I thought, was a solid pickup, but he's posting up over a 4 ERA. John Schreiber has been a little bit lost along with Alex Lang thus far this season. Good news is they do face off against the Guardians team that's currently in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of run creation, but even with that, I do think that they're going to be able to get to him a little bit, and it helps out that the fences were moved in at Kauffman Stadium, so you've got a Cleveland Guardians team that does have a pair of guys, and Jose Ramirez and Chase Lauder, who have 6 home runs apiece. They should be able to get a little bit of power going. Ano Martinez is up to 5 home runs, hitting at 275, and Brian Rocchio has actually been able to give you a solid 350 or so on base. You still need more out of your power hitters, so Travis Bazzana just called up to the big league level, has yet to do too much, but I mean, that's a small sample size, but with regards to the likes of a Bo Naylor, Reese Hoskins, throwing their Kyle Manzardo, owing at 225 or lower, I'll give you 3 home runs or fewer. You just need a little bit more there, and for the Kansas City Royals, Carter Jensen has actually been your top home run hitter ever since the oversleep situation. He's been solid. 6 home runs. He's been able to give you a solid on base. And you've got guys that are moving the line for this team. Like you've had Nick Lofton at above a 250. Miguel Garcia is hitting at 270. Bobby Witt Jr. just 2 home runs, but still hitting about a 280. But Salvador Perez, 5 home runs, less than a 300 on base. You've been having Vinny Pasquantino in and out of the lineup, and when he's been hitting below the Mendoza line 200. You just need a little bit more there. And for the Guardians, right now they're about league average in terms of bullpen ERA, but you can sense that this team is having some positivity, getting Hunter Gaddis back off the injury list. Tim Aaron has yet to allow a run thus far this season. Eric Sabrowski, sub-3 ERA. So with Guardians, set them out of minus 126. I'm willing to lay up to minus 125 on the money line. I do like the over. Somebody told that at 8.7, 919, 920 on the card. It's the Angels are going to be playing against the White Sox. Eric Fetty-Wap is on the bump for the White Sox, and for the Angels, it's to be determined. This game is off the board. The expectation is Keaton Donna is going to be getting the start for the Angels, and I set my handicap accordingly. I actually made the White Sox a minus 102 favorite. Pretty much I'm going to be in on whoever is plus money, but that said, I made the White Sox the slightest of slight favorites at a minus 102. To make it simple, I'm taking over his plus money and then made a total of 9.39 or less. I do like the over a 9.5 or higher. The under for Donna, he did spend some time at the big league level both in 2024 and 25, despite the fact that he's only 22 years old. No success whatsoever there. A 7.17 ERA. You take a look at what he did at the minor league level, and there's no reason to think that he's going to be any better this year. He was pitching for AAA Salt Lake. That's a PCL. That's a juice ball league, but I mean, he was posting up a 6 ERA, but the concern is that he's been just really, really inconsistent and has only been able to pitch 12 innings this far this season as well. So he's not been able to deliver a lot of length. He's dealt with some injuries, and him being just 22 years old, that does cause for some issues there. Meanwhile, for Eric Fetty, last season was a very no good, very bad, terrible season. He's been much better this year. A 3.24 ERA. I need to see a little bit more to believe it because he also has a 4.95 field independent. You go back to last year when he had that just disastrous 5.49 ERA. The field independent then was a 5.20. He was giving up 4.3 walks, 1.2 home runs per 9 innings. He's actually seen an uptick, giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. Command has been better with only 3 walks per 9, but he's still not getting a lot of strikeouts. 5.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and additionally, he's backed up by a White Sox bullpen that is one of the lesser ones in the big leagues. Sir Anthony Dominguez doesn't have the world's worst ERA along with Sean Newcomb, but those are guys that you really don't trust in. Jordan Leisure has leisurely given you over a 5.50 ERA. Jordan Nix looks a little bit washed for the White Sox. This is a bottom 5 team in terms of actual batting average, but I am Mutaka Murakami and the power that he, along with as well Colson Montgomery, have provided have been a nice, shall we say, deodorant to that stink for Murakami. 13 home runs with a 3.62 on base entering into the season. Here in Colson Montgomery, both hitting below 230 with regards to batting average, but Montgomery 3.43 on base, 9 home runs out of him. Miguel Vargas 2.20 average, 6 home runs. This is very much an all or nothing lineup. You have Luan Acuna, Edgar Quiro, both hitting a 200 or lower, so they're going to need a little bit more there. Everson Piera has been able to move the line, get on base for you a little bit, and for the LA Angels, this is currently a team that is in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of run creation at home. They've actually been a top 6 team in terms of run creation away from home, so do think that irons out a little bit. You've got Mike Trout give you 10 home runs, over a 400 on base. You've had Nolan Schuno and a few other guys be able to find a way on base. Schuno sitting about a 250. I like what I've seen out of Oswald Peraza. 4 bombs. He's up to about a 350 on base. But after that great start to the season, Zach Neto down to about a 215 average with 5 home runs. He's been stuck on 5 bombs for a while. And Josh Lowe, Yoel Moncada, these are veterans that are hitting below a $185 and not a lot of power. So that's a big issue there. And I talk about the White Sox bullpen. This Angels bullpen that is going to be supporting Dono, who I don't think is going to be long for this game, has been absolutely terrible thus far this season. You've got so many guys that are posting up these just astronomical ERAs. Sean Anderson is your long guy, 5.94 ERA, and then Nick Sandlin, Jordan Romano, I'm pretty sure is on the injury list, and if he's not, that's actually a downgrade for this team. Joey Lucchesi, Taylor Sacedo, these are all guys that have an ERA above a 10. Drew Pomeranz has a 8.53 ERA, so not good there. I do think that both of these pitchers are going to be giving up some runs, and even though I think that Eric Fetty's doing for regression, I thought the White Sox as a very slim favorite on the road, so I'll be taking whoever it's plus money. I set the White Sox officially at a minus 102, and then 9 or less like the over 9.5 or higher, the under 921, 922 on the card. It's the Angels. They're going to be on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Luis Severino is on the bump for the Athletics, and you've got Christopher Sanchez on the bump for the Phillies. Phillies are a sizable favorite here, minus 170 to minus 190, plus 140 to plus 160 is that number on the Athletics. Currently, your total is anywhere between 8 to 9 on the 8, over is minus 115, the under is minus 105 on the 8.5, over is minus 120, the under is even on the 9, under is minus 120, over is even money. I set my total at 8.2, 8.5 or higher, which I'm mostly seeing. I'm going to be in on this total to the under. Luis Severino has some big time home and road splits. You take a look back at what he did during the 2025 season, and he was posting up an ERA right around about a 3 with just over a half home run per 9 innings allowed away from him. At home, that ERA ballooned all the way up to a 6, and it looks like he's going to be doing so once again this season because Sacramento, it just really elevates offense. Severino has been up with his swing and miss stuff this season as well. He is up to 9.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, a 4.46 ERA, fielding independent that's very much in line with that, and I don't know if the home and road splits are going to be quite as extreme this year as they were a season ago, but you take a look at early returns thus far, and right now he's got a 4.91 ERA at home, 4.05 ERA away from home, giving up 4 home runs at home in his 18 and a third innings, 0 bombs in 20 innings, and he does get to go up against a Philadelphia Phillies lineup that has been in the bottom 6 in the big leagues in terms of run creation. You just have not been able to get a lot out of the infield. Bryson Stott, he did have a home run in that series against the Mariners, but He and Alec Boehm both hitting below 235. Trey Turner down for what? A 300 on base. You just expect a little bit more there. Adolis Garcia, 3 or 4 home runs. He's only been able to about a 240. Kyle Schwarber continues to give you great power, 9+ home runs, 364 on base, but he's again a guy that's not going to hit for a lot of average. They currently have Garrett Stubbs at the catcher spot due to injury. And then for the Athletics, this is a team that very much benefits from being at home. You do take a look at the home and road splits. They're a bit extreme, and Brent Rooker being on the injured list, that's really suppressed his offensive numbers thus far this season. For the Athletics, about 5.1 runs per game at home compared to about 3.8 runs per game away from home. The one guy that has been able to hit no matter where he's been, Shea Langoliers. Shea is banged for 10+ home runs. He's hitting well above a 300. And then you do have Jacob Wilson along with Jeff McNeil, who both have been able to hit above a 275. Neither of these guys are really going to give you a lot of power, but they've been relatively solid. Carlos Cortez has been able to hit above a 350 thus far with 4 home runs. He's actually come from out of nowhere. They've needed it because Tyler Soderstrom has been a little bit of a disappointment for this team, and they've got the wrong Max Muncy currently on the injured list as well. You need a bit more of Lawrence Butler, but all in all, it's a relatively solid lineup, and for the Athletics, they've been about a league average team in terms of opening area. You've got the likes of a Joel Kuhnel and Jack Perkins who have been able to give you a sub 350 ERA. Horgan Harris has been solid. Elvis Alvarado, it seems like he's dealing with injury right now. We haven't seen him in a while, but Justin Sterner has been able to hold down the fort. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this is a team that's in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of ERA. Jose Alvarado has not been the same since the drug suspension, well above a 5 ERA. Brian Keller's been a little bit shaky this year. They're getting Jonathan Bolin off the injured list, but you've got he along Tanner Banks, who have not been sharp, both providing over a 5 ERA. Getting back Ryan Kirkering should be able to help out a little bit as well, but I mean, the big thing here for the Philadelphia Phillies is that Christopher Sanchez has been just absolutely dominant. He's a guy that I think is going to be in the Cy Young hunt this season, and they are going to need him to be in the Cy Young hunt. His swing and miss stuff is way up because last year he was solid in terms of being able to get whiffs with about 9.4 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's up to about 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings this year, 290 ERA, 260 fielding dependent. I do think that he goes out there, very much does his job. Right now, that money line price is starting to get a little bit juicy. I was willing to set the Phillies at a minus 168 if you're looking to lay run half with them. Right now, you're going to be finding plus money of about a plus 105, plus 110. I personally needed at least a plus 123. Right now, with getting a run half with the Athletics, I'm seeing that more around about a minus 125, and I would be willing to take up to a minus 125 there. If I could get a plus 169 or higher, we'll be looking at the Athletics on the money line. I think we're going to be able to get one of those two in some form or capacity. So we'll be on the Athletics in some form or capacity, most likely a plus 170 money line if that comes about in at an 8.5 or higher, like the under. 923, 924 on the card. It's the Orioles. They're going to be on the road against the Miami Marlins. Sandy Alcantara is on the bump for the Fish, and Chris Bassett as the hook, line, and sinker for Baltimore. And Baltimore, they do find themselves as a bit of an underdog here. You're going to be getting them right around about a plus 110, minus 130 is that number on the Miami Marlins, seeing as low as minus 120 out there as well. The total is 8.5 over and under, both at minus 110, and with the Marlins, I did set them at a minus 172 on the money line. I'm going to be willing to lay it. I just have no faith here in Chris Bassett whatsoever. About a 5.36 ERA, 4.5 walks, 5.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Has looked much better in his last 2 starts, but still, it's been a very shaky season for him. He's been able to keep the ball in the yard relatively well, but it's a Miami Marlins team that they really don't rely upon the deep ball to be able to get their offense going, as you've been able to have Liam Hicks be able to give you over a 300 average. He's been able to supply 7 home runs as far this season, but he's really been the lone power bat. Now, I do think that Kyle Sauer's coming back. He's been out there for only about 2 weeks or so. He's going to be able to give you a little bit of power as well, but that said, you're relying upon Xavier Edwards hitting over a 300 to be able to move the line. We've been seeing Otto Lopez do a nice job hitting above a 300 as well. You do need a little bit more from the bottom of the lineup. Owen Casey, after a nice first 2 weeks or so of the season, he's been really regressing. He's barely hitting above a 200 right now. Jacob Marcy, one of the best base heroes in all baseball, but he hits just a $180, so you need a little bit more there. And then on the other side of things for the Orioles, this team entered into the week about 24th in the big leagues in terms of run creation away from home with about 3.9 runs per game. Was nice to be able to see Pete Alonso get a pair of home runs out there in New York, but he's still been a disappointment as he, Dylan Beavers, Gunnar Henderson, all hitting between about a 210 to a 220. Blaze Alexander, he hits for no power, 263 on base, 203 average. You do have Gunnar Henderson, who has been able to give you A+ home runs, but again, 270 or so on base. You just need a little bit more there. Samuel Basallo's been able to find it a little bit more, but they're still dealing with the injuries with Jackson Holiday, Jordan Westberg, and a few others. Now for the Orioles, this has been a much better bullpen as well, but that said, now you've got Ryan Helsley on the injured list. Yunier Cano, don't you know, he's back down to a 2 ERA. Keegan Aiken along with Diedrich Enns, these are able to be relatively solid long guys, and Uncle Rico Garcia has been able to give you his 2 ERA as well. But for Sandy Alcantara, he is right now leading the league with 47 and a third innings pitch. Now, he's not going to go out there and get you a lot of strikeouts, only about 5.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he does a great job in terms of being able to find a way to be able to fill innings and just be able to, for lack of a better term, do his job. He's been giving up over 3 walks per 9 innings as well, so he has been a workhorse for the team. And if you do have a little bit of a shorter start than expected for him, he's still been backed up by a bullpen that's been in the top 10 in terms of ERA. Lake Bakar has been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. They do have on the injured list their main closer in Pete Fairbanks, but still, you've got a lot of guys like an Andrew Nardi, who he had a sub 3.25 ERA, along Calvin Fauché, who was in that neighborhood as well, who have been having rough starts to the season. They should be able to find it a little bit more as well. So I do think that the Marlins do go out there, get the job done in pretty convincing fashion, and do think that's going to be a lower scoring game. We have seen Bassett pitch a little bit better, and this is a pitcher-friendly ballpark, so I might tell that at 7.9, so like the 8.5 under, and with the Marlins, I'm willing to take the money line. I set them more around about a minus 171, minus 172, 925, 926 on the card. The Nationals are playing us to the Minnesota Twins. Taj Junkel, Milton Bradley is on the bump for the Twins, and Cade Cavalli is on the bump for Washington, and Washington does find themselves as a slim favorite here, between minus 115 to minus 120, even money to minus 105. That number on the Twins, 8.5 to 9 is the total. On the 8.5, over is minus 120, and the under is even, and then on the 9, under is minus 120, and the over is even money, and I'm going to be in on the Twins on the money line. I was actually setting them as a minus 126 favorite for Taj Bradley. He's looked like a new man this season. Last year, it was not great. 5.05 ERA. He was only getting about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's gone back up to where he was in his first few seasons with the Rays, 9.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, 2.85 ERA. Recognize that fielding dependence more around about a 3.82, but he's been rock solid. And then for Cade Cavalli, he's got a 3.82 ERA, and the fielding dependence is in line with that. 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings and less than 1 home run allowed per 9 is impressive, but he also has been giving up 4.1 walks per 9 innings, and that's a big issue because he's backed up by a Nationals bullpen that's currently in the bottom 8 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now, PJ Poulin has been a relatively solid opener for the team, and he's been able to give you some solid innings, but you're dealing with Clayton Beater being on the injured list. Cino Perez is a guy that I have absolutely no faith in whatsoever. I actually like Brad Lord as a bit of a long guy, but right now for the Washington Nationals, it's all about trying to be able to slug their way to victory. You've got James Wood along CJ Abrams, who have been incredible. These two guys have combined 18 home runs entering in the week, both give you above a 380 on base, and then the guys around them are doing a functional job in terms of getting on base. Someone like a Jobert Vivas entered in the week with about a 350 on base. You've got Curtis Mead, who's been able to give you 4 home runs, about a 310 on base. You don't necessarily have likes of Luis Garcia, Jacob Young and company hitting for a ton of average. These two guys along with Brady House hitting between about a 225 to 235, but they've been able to do just enough to be able to keep this offense going. They're a top 8 team in terms of run creation. Joey Weimer has been hitting above a 300 as well. And then on the other end of things, you do have yourself a Twins team that has been in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of run creation. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be a mainstay because you do have a pair of guys that last year had 20 plus home runs in Matt Wallner and along Cody Clemens hitting well below the Mendoza line of 200, but Byron Buxton, 10 home runs over the last month or so. He has been on fire after a really slow start to the season. They need to get Royce Lewis going. He clearly is playing injured. He's hitting for like a $175 right now, but Brooks Lee has been able to pick it up. He's been able to give you 5 home runs, hitting at 255. Lucas Shaw has been a disappointment, and he and Josh Bell both hitting below 225. You need more out of these guys, and for the Minnesota Twins, I talk about the Washington Nationals having a bottom 10 bullpen. This is a bottom 3 bullpen in terms of ERA, so yeah, they have not been great to say the least as well, but I said you do have Cody Funderburk back. I believe that he was on either the paternity or the bereavement list. He's been able to give you a sub 225 ERA. Cody Lawyerson hitting the injured list really hurt this team because now you've got likes of Cole Sands, Eric Orsay, Justin Topa be more of your reliable guys. These are between 450 and 470 ERA guys, and Taylor Rogers just looks a little bit washed at this point, but I do think that Taj Bradley is going to be the better starter in this spot, and I do think that he does enough to be able to will this team to victory. Semi-total at 8.7, between an 8.5 to a 9. I personally would rather have an 8.5 over rather than a 9 under because of these bad bullpens. So, like the money line here of the Twins, willing to lay up to a minus 125, and I am going to be in on this total over as well. 927, 928 on the card. The Dodgers are on the road. They're facing off against the Astros as you've got Peter Lambert on the bump for the Astros, and Shohei Ohtani is on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers are very sizable favorites here, anywhere between minus $2, minus 220, between plus 170, seeing as high as plus 185. That's your number on Houston. 8.5 is the total. Under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. If you're looking to lay run half with the Dodgers. That is anywhere between minus 120 to a minus 125. And with the Dodgers run line, I'm willing to go up to a minus 125 there. I set their money line price at a minus 197. And everyone has always talked about Shohei Ohtani, the hitter, for a very long time. When Shohei Ohtani just focuses on pitching, he's good enough to be able to win a Cy Young. I know that there's a lot of people that may not want me to say that, but you take a look at what he's done ever since he's gotten to Los Angeles. He's posted up in the regular season only, a sub 230 ERA, and his fielding independent is actually lower than his ERA, as unbelievable as it is, as he's been posting up with the Dodgers a 199 ERA, 193 fielding independent, 0.4 home runs, 2.1 walks per 9 innings, with 11.2 punch-outs per 9 innings. He has just been absolutely tremendous, and that's big because the Dodgers are dealing with some injuries in the bullpen, as you still are dealing with a few guys like Edwin Diaz currently being on the injury list. Rock and Roll Stewart is as well, so that's been an issue. Jack Dreyer along with Alex Vesia are guys that supplied a sub 325 ERA last season, and after a tough last season, Tanner Scott looks like he's getting back into form, sub 250 ERA. Meanwhile, for Peter Lambert, if you look at the career numbers, it's absolutely awful. He went to Japan last year, and he actually wasn't a very good pitcher in Japan, if I'm calling it what it is, so I do question whether the small sample size that we've seen of 3 starts lasts, but he's up to a 352 ERA. He's getting 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, has yet to give up a home run in these 3 starts. I will say, though, 4.1 walks per 9 innings. That does need to have you a little bit, shall we say, questioning what we're seeing there, and that's a big reason why I'm going to be in on this over. I set my total at an 8.7. Also have a Dodgers team that's averaging darn near a full run and a half more away from home rather than at home. Recognize that they were held down in that series against the St. Louis Cardinals, but I've got Ohtani himself give you over a 375 on base with 6 home runs. Any pause that slowed down with power. He entered in the series with 5 home runs, but still, he's been able to above 300. You've got Max Muncy, darn near a 400 base. He's been able to give you 9 home runs. It's been a little bit of a tough start to the season for Kyle Tucker. You know that he's going to be able to find it, and it has been a little bit of a rough for Teoscar Hernandez as well, but I do think that he's going to be fine moving forward as well. And for the Astros, even though this bullpen is absolutely terrible, Brian Abreu is right now giving you over a 70 ERA. I mean, it's really hard to find anyone other than really like Kai Tang who's giving you a sub 350 ERA. It's just been absolutely awful what we've been seeing out of Daniel De Los Santos and the likes of those guys. It has been a lineup that has been in the top 8 in terms of run creation. Christian Walker, after a disappointing year last year, he's been able to supply a over 350 on base. He's up to 8+ home runs. Yordan Alvarez, he's right now up to over 430 on base. He's been slugging on 12 home runs. I recognize that Jose Altuve is not the guy that he once was, but he's still hitting above 250. Move the line. Carlos Correa, give you over 350 on base. Isaac Paredes has been down with the power, but he's been able to find a way on. Cam Smith has been a little bit, shall we say, shaky here over the last few weeks, but Christian Vasquez has been able to give you some stability at the catcher spot. So I do think that you get a high scoring game, and I do think that the Dodgers get to Lambert and that bullpen. I like the over, so I told it at 8.7. And with the Dodgers, I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 125 on the run line. Wrap things up with 929, 930 on the card. It's the Atlanta Braves. They're going to be on the road. They're facing off against the Seattle Mariners, as George Kirby is on the bump for the Seattle Mariners, and Bryce Elder hopes to not be elderly for the Atlanta Braves. Total on this game is between 7.5 to 8. On the 8, under is minus 115. The over is minus 105. On the 7.5, over is minus 120, and the under is even. For Seattle, they're between minus 145 to minus 150 favorites. Plus 125 is that number on the Braves, and I'm going to take a shot here on the Braves on the money line. I did set them at a minus 104. For George Kirby, he's been seeing a little bit of a dip with regards to his strikeout stuff. 6.8 strikeouts per 9 innings is a career low for him. Now, George Kirby, always known for not walking guys, he's been a little bit more willing to walk guys over the last year or two, but he still does a relatively solid job with the command. He's been giving up less than 1 home run per 9 innings, so I do think that he's going to be able to go out there, hold down the 4-3 ERA with a 3.66 fielding independent. His walks rate is 2.2 right now, which is actually up for him, but you want to talk about a guy that's been able to turn over a new leaf. Bryce Elder looked elderly last year. He was posting up a 5.30 ERA. He was just absolutely atrocious. He was giving up right around about 1.4 home runs, over 2 walks per 9 innings as well, more like 3 walks per 9 innings. And this year, still only about 7.5 strikeouts per 9 innings, but down to 0.4 home runs per 9. He faces off against a Seattle Mariners lineup that has been in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of run creation. You've got big dumper Cal Raleigh, who's been able to give you 7 home runs, but he's hitting right around about the Mendoza line of 200. Josh Naylor has been hitting less than a 225. He hasn't necessarily been a great pickup. You've got Brendan Donovan on the injury list. Julio Rodriguez is starting to find it after a rough start to the season. He always starts out relatively rough, as he and Randy Arozarena hang between a 265 to a 275, throwing their Tom Cam zone, who's right around about a 264. But outside of Raleigh, not getting a ton of power, and they did have to give Raleigh a little bit of a day off from the starting lineup yesterday as well. So that's something that you do want to be keeping in mind. And for the Atlanta Braves, they enter the series numero uno in terms of run creation with about 5.8 runs per game. That's back to where they were in 2023 when they were averaging 5.6 5.75 runs per game. And they're doing this all with Ronald Acuna Jr. not giving you too much of anything whatsoever. He wasn't even in the starting lineup yesterday, and they are dealing with a little bit of an injury to Michael Harris as well. But when Mauricio Dubon is sitting above a 265, Jorge Mateo is moving the line for you. Austin Riley, he hasn't even gotten going as well. He was dealing with injury last season, but Matt Olson, 11 bombs, hitting at 300. Ozzie Albies hitting at 333, 7 home runs. Drake Baldwin hitting above at 300 for 8 home runs. That's very, very powerful. And additionally, for the Atlanta Braves, this is a top 5 team with regards to bullpenning area. Really, both of these teams are. Strangely, for the Seattle Mariners, Andres Munoz has been the issue for you thus far this season. They did put Matt Brash on the injury list, but Jose Ferreira, sub-2 ERA, Edward Bizarro, Gabe Spire, they were able to give you sub-3 ERA last season. Then Tyler Kinley, sub-225 ERA since coming over to the Atlanta Braves at the trade deadline last season. You've had Aaron Bummer not be a bummer. He's been solid. Dylan Lee has given you a sub-3 ERA. Mauricio Iglesias is on the injury list, but Robert Suarez, he has stepped up admirably for this team, and I think that the Braves are right now looking like the best team in all of baseball. I set them as a slim favorite at -104. Do like them on the money line. I did set my total here at a 7.6. We are right now between a 7.5 to an 8. Personally, I would be looking at the 7.5 to the over rather than the 8 under personally, just because I am a big believer in this Braves offense. And that'll wrap things up for the Tuesday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. A big thanks to our guy, Ben Wilson. He does such great work over here at VSiN. He joined me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one or two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @Gio_D1. Keep in mind, there's the name does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast, 5.5-star review. I'm coming at you guys every single day with picks and analysis on every game, every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.